Hey VC, it's Mazzy here, and while I make my coffee, actually it's about ready here. I'm got my dark Grafeo beans from San Francisco, which my buddy Coleman handed over to me. As I said in one of my early videos, I'm a dark roast fan, and Grafeo beans I haven't had in a while. They've been in North Beach probably since the 60s. One of the first dark Italian roasts. And now, as I said in one of my other videos, my snarky intros to one of my other videos, I'm tired of this frigging, it's Sunday morning, I can't swear, this frigging, well, I can, but I'm not going to, this frigging, what a word, mid to light roast, you know, all these like hipster roasters, and I kind of pick on Blue Bottle because they're from San Francisco, and they sort of pioneered that new light roast thing. Now they're in Brooklyn and they're around everywhere, you know, whatever. I mean, good for them. And I like that more people are experiencing good coffee. And whatever you say about Starbucks, they at least brought good coffee to the masses. Because I remember, you know, places like New York and San Francisco and North Beach, the Italian areas, you'd get great espresso. But even if you went to LA at the time, I remember going to the LA in the mid 70s and you'd order a cappuccino, it would be like this liquor drink with an umbrella and a cinnamon stick and whipped cream and brandy or something. And it's not a friggin' cappuccino. Anyway, here's my morning Grafeo. And I'm playing something that might surprise you. I mean, listen to this. Let's all go, oh, fuck. I just spilled coffee all over the floor. The Virgo me is gonna freak out if I don't clean it up right away, but you know, I'm gonna let it stay. But listen to this, almost sounds like Bach, doesn't it? Well, this is another record that will surprise the hell out of you, and it's a gorgeous record for a Sunday morning. And my buddy again, Coleman, let me tell you about Coleman. Coleman and I met in 1973. I worked in a record store. It was my first record store job, and it was a chain, California chain called the Warehouse Records, and it's spelled W-H-E-R-E. And I worked at the store when I was in college on Geary Boulevard, and this guy used to come in every once in a while, Coleman, would buy records, and we just started talking about music a lot. I remember specifically we talked about the Jefferson Airplane, because we were both airplane fans and we were both native San Franciscans. I can put you down here. None of this Cinema Verte handheld stuff. Let me get you situated, as I say. I need to get a better rig here because these books are gonna fall right in the middle of my friggin' presentation. Is that right? Does that work for you? Richard Avedon, John, and me. So Coleman used to come in and we became friends. We talked music. He was just starting to play guitar then. He is now a professional musician, has had a band for all these years, does pretty well and successful at that. He still lives in the Bay Area, lives in San Rafael, so he sent me that. But we ended up, the record store I worked in hired him for Christmas help, and he stayed on, and we've been friends ever since. Then he worked at Tower Records while I moved on to another record store called Record Factory. Anyway, the rest is history that I'm sure you don't really care about. But the thing about the VC, it's kind of fun that people tell personal stories. And I love to share these stories of growing up at the perfect time, at the perfect place. San Francisco in the late 60s, 70s, musically, just was a remarkable place. And we're very fortunate by that. But I was also a fan, a band that wasn't hip to like when we worked in record stores, but I really liked them, and luckily my friend Coleman and this other friend of mine, Vernon, three of us liked, independently, ABBA. And this is not a video on ABBA, but it leads into my first record. In fact, this record that's on in the background now. 1978, I went to Europe. I did the whole Beatle thing, and that's where I ended up getting influenced to do my book, The Beatles England, that I co-wrote, because I'd go to the Beatles sites and there was nothing there. The tourist bureaus, there's nothing there to see. But I was in London and I took the train to visit a good friend of mine, or a decent friend of mine, or a mile friend of mine. She was in university at Oxford, so I took the train out to Oxford for the day. We hung out, had lunch, and she had this thing. She said, "I got to go see this movie. I've heard about this great movie," and it was called the ABBA movie, 1978. And I knew about ABBA. She knew nothing about ABBA. And if you've seen the movie, it's during their tour, kind of half written, half live, kind of a kooky storyline about a interviewer wants to get the ultimate interview with ABBA in Australia. Because, ABBA wasn't never really, at the time, never really huge in America. But anyway, so my friend Barbara and I, she was American, went to see that evening at the theater in Oxford, the ABBA movie. I loved it. I mean, I just had a good time. I smiled. Not a great movie, but it's great because if you like ABBA music, hey, it's ABBA. She friggin' hated it. She hated the movie. But it was her choice and her decision and her idea. And it hadn't come to America yet, and I think end of that year in 78 or early 79, it finally came to America. And Coleman and I went together to see the ABBA movie, and we went to the Concord Pavilion, which is Northern California, and we saw ABBA, their only American tour. So I'm proud to say I saw ABBA live. But anyway, this will surprise you. On Deutsche Grammophon, famous German classical record, gorgeous piano solo. Benny Andersson, probably him and Bjorn are the main songwriters of ABBA, all that great stuff. And he plays accordion in ABBA. He plays, aside from, the keyboards, but he writes a lot of his songs apparently on the grand piano. And this is just a gorgeous, if you put this on and you didn't tell me, I would have no idea that this has anything to do with ABBA. I guess there are a couple of themes within here, I believe, that you can recognize a few of the melodies of one or two ABBA tracks. I can't remember exactly which ones, but listen to this. Gorgeous, gorgeous record, and highly recommended. So, wonderful gatefold. But anyway, this video is basically some new things that I purchased, and these are all new records, or new-ish records, new for me. They're not used this particular time. This is all new work. And a couple of things that I learned on the forum from other, I'm sorry, I get confused with the Hoffman forum, the VC. Sorry, I don't mean any disparaging you about that. But there's a guy that I just got into recently in the last few weeks, Eat Sleep Vinyl. His name is Teddy, and he doesn't post a lot now. It looks like he was posting for a while. He hasn't posted in about 4 months. But he's so soothing. He's so informative. He loves a lot of jazz, avant-garde, some folk. He'll like rock and roll, but that's not his primary thing to show. But he showed a record. I just watched a couple weeks ago his best of 2018 record. So obviously that came out early this year. And he played some snippets of things, and he showed this record as his #1 record of last year. And it's great to be turned on to records, but once you start watching a handful of videos from a person, you start to develop or start to understand their taste. And it's really wonderful when you kind of think, well, those are cool records. I don't have all those, but I like that style. I like that. In his case, I like the jazziness. I like some of the experimentation. Obviously, he goes into the traditional reissues of Blue Note and Verve and some classical bits, but he has a lot of avant-garde, and he does buy a lot of new records. There's a lot of new jazz artists, and what I call new is basically contemporary, in the last now, people who are playing now and recording. And I don't know a lot about that stuff, but I'm really open to it. For a while I get like snooty thinking, all I have to get is John Coltrane and Art Blakey and that stuff, which obviously are amazing. But there's some wonderful music being put out. And this woman, Mira Milford, is a jazz pianist, somewhat avant-garde, a little freeform at times, very classical at times too. And she's not a young lad, she's in her early 60s, and she lives now, or she has lived in the last, 10, 15 years, I guess, maybe longer, in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Berkeley. I think she's adjunct professor at UC Berkeley in music department, but she is involved with the music series Yerba Buena Center in San Francisco as a curator. She plays at SF Jazz, but this is a trio, or well actually, I'm sorry, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you call 5? Quintet, piano, drums, bass guitar, guitar, and cornet. And sometimes it's mellow, and sometimes it just kicks in on an acoustic level that I just was bowled over by. I've been playing this nonstop since I got it. Already played it probably 6 times, which is a lot for a new album. And lately I've been getting so many records, but this one's called The Other Side of Air. Actually, I bought it through Amazon, but I found her site and I ordered one of her other recent albums. She works with this kind of group called Snowy Egret. Snowy Egret. But it's an independent Firehouse Records. I'm not sure if it's her own label or it might be, but amazing record. Okay, I'll go pick it up, speed a little bit. Also been getting into Baraka PH Dub. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out your name, but I love, again, these two people, Teddy and are very, this calming force and into jazz, almost like professorial, but in a wonderful way. And you just know that they know they're, I was gonna say SHIT, but it's Sunday morning again. They know their stuff. He also presents a lot of jazz, a lot of blue note. He's very knowledgeable of that. You know, he gets into his rock and roll stuff too and all and that. But I've owned, he talked a couple of videos and he keeps bringing up Music Matters issues. And if you don't know Music Matters, they've been around about, what, 15 years, maybe even longer. And they reissue pretty much only blue note, all analog, all master tapes, beautiful glossy gatefold covers, almost exclusively, where they add pictures. Gorgeous reissues, expensive. And there's a whole story behind that. A few years ago, they just, in the last couple years, you used to get them at analog, maybe at Amazon occasionally, but analog productions or Music Direct and the online retailers. And they pulled them because I think they didn't like the idea that all of a sudden these retailers, not just eBayers, were marking them up dramatically. And I said in another video the other day that I'm kind of getting tired of getting all these used musty records that I open them up and they smell like toilet water and dead rats in the wall and give you headaches, all the musty mildew. And obviously, in terms of Blue Note specifically, their originals are so expensive. Their 75 anniversary aren't very good in my opinion. However, their new 80 anniversaries that are coming out now, 3 a month, are amazing. The covers are a little cheap, but they're pretty much all analog and they sound great. But they also have a line that, another line called Tone Poet that are about $30 to $35, which are gorgeous and worth getting if you're into jazz. But I had 3 Music Matters records that I got maybe 3-4 years ago, and I loved them, and I kind of forgot about them. But based on this thing, now you go there at Music Matters, and they only sell through their site, and they only sell, well, they usually start at around $48 to $58 a piece. And they have 2 lines. They have their 33 to 3rd line and their 45 RPM. I'm going with the 33. I know some people are into 44 and extra, you know, the wider bands and the sound. I just don't like flipping records that much, even though I have a few of those. But this is one, just got 3 recently. There's the ABBA song, Thank You for the Music, I think. Indestructible, Art Blakey. But look at this cover and his packaging. Anyway, the one thing I don't like about them, I sort of get it, but when a record is ending its print run and it's getting tight in terms of fewer, they raise the price. So it's like the friggin' stock market. You know, things go high, low, or commodities trading. I also got Grant Green Solid. And the third one I got was Lou Donaldson. But I tell you, I'm gonna be like sticking in a little extra funds away every month and buying some of these and adding it to my collection. Because even the ones, I haven't got the real expensive ones yet, but as you get them, they're only gonna go out of print. And at some point, these tapes aren't gonna be mastered anymore from analog, just because, you know, at some point, they're gonna be worn. And already, as you know, original Blue Notes many are in the hundreds of dollars, and some even in the thousands. So, as much as this is, if you want for a lifetime investment of music, and I know it's not for everybody, it just depends on your playback rig, how invested you are in your collection in terms of something of value. And it's not to say, you know, cheap finds, I'm still doing cheap finds, but I'm gonna probably do a lot less now, because I find I have a wall of stuff that I buy that I'm addicted to, and I don't listen to them, but I know I'll listen to these a lot. So that's that in terms of Music Matters. I love the label. One of the guys who's a partners of Music Matters is actually doing the Tone Poet series for Blue Note and Don Was. So they're finally realizing that there are a segment of people that will pay more for a real quality product. And you know, good for them. I wish more labels had that option. Not that everything should be expensive, but I think, you know, I mean, the Verve ones, the covers that are coming out are so friggin' cheap. I wish Impulse, but wasn't there something with an Impulse fire and a lot of those the original tapes were destroyed? That's too bad if that's the case. Anyway, beautiful album, Flying Lotus. I posted his other album that came out 3-4 years ago on an earlier Whack-A-Mole, I think, or one of my videos. This just came out. Fusion, intense, soul, funk. Herbie Hancock's on it, George Clinton. Again, it's in the Kamasi Washington mold, only more on the soul side than jazz, but very fusion, gorgeous record, intense at times, a lot going on at times. So it's not the mellow type of thing that you're gonna hear in the background, but a new favorite of mine. I'm gonna go flip the record. Thank you for the music, da 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 da. Thank you for, fuck, I stepped in the coffee. Oh shit, oh God. I wasn't gonna swear on a Sunday morning. I stepped on the coffee that I didn't clean up on the floor. Oh well, there goes that. Okay, a few other, I got 4 more, but New Mavis Staples. Great record, socially relevant. See, that's the thing. I'm dyslexic. It's called We Get By, and it's produced by Ben Harper. So it's got that kind of swampy Ben Harper sound, but her vocals, God, they're still friggin' great. This is a famous photograph called Outside Looking Into Mobile, Alabama from 1956. And it's this African-American girl looking at these white kids, privileged white kids playing. Famous photograph by the photographer Gordon Parks. But this is a wonderful record. Highly recommended. Soulful, swampy, it just makes you feel good. And this is kind of, you know, all too very topical, obviously, but it's not like, you know, politically pushing it down your throat. I mean, you enjoy the music. It's a really great record. Mavis Staples, We Get By. Now this is part of going to be a trilogy, and it's called Invisible Light Acoustic Space on Verve Forecast. And Verve Forecast is sort of an offshoot of Verve, obviously, that they do things a little more folky, a little more experimental. Not a record for everybody, but the ringleader on this one is infamous T-Bone Burnett, great musicologist. So it's got Americana roots, it's got, you know, trip hop a little bit, beat poet talking. He does all the vocals in this kind of talky way. So it's also the other artist. It's with Jay Bellarose, and Kephis Shinsancia. You know, I'm getting in like Steve Carlson here. In fact, Steve Carlson got me inspired to do this one this morning just because his videos are great wake-up videos. They really wake you up, and I love that. And certain videos and certain VC members I like better at night. Those first two I recommended, Teddy and Baraka PH Dub. I like in the evening because they're kind of the mellow sounds of VC where Steve Carlson kind of wakes you up, although I really loved this morning's video on Sunday showing that his talking about the beautiful forest kind of near or around his house, and that was very peaceful, serene. Anyway, good stuff. It's all good stuff. It just depends on the mood and moment you're in. But this is going to be part of a trilogy. This one's a double record set, and it's I can't even describe it. Any of you adventurous people that like sort of also beat poetry and jazzy folk with some, you know, interesting production edge might like this. You know, seek it out, search it. They kind of refer it to trip visualist music. Trip visualist music. There's a new genre. It's just what we need. Sounds like a friggin' real estate agent in San Francisco that creates some new neighborhood just to kind of upsell it and charge you more. Does that happen where you live? Urban cities that do that, like an area that was down and out for years, or people didn't want to buy, and all of a sudden they give it a new name. In San Francisco, there's an area that I lived in during the 80s. It was called by the Western Addition near the Panhandle on the way to Golden Gate Park, up from Hayes Valley, and the last 10 years now they call it NOPA. North of the Panhandle, NOPA. Friggin' NOPA. I mean, come on. It's the Western Addition. But they charge more for houses now. Well, everything in San Francisco is expensive. I'm going to end up with a band I might have mentioned before, but is it Lulik or Lulik? Australian duo. Gorgeous. In a way, they're a little like if you strip down Fairport Convention and just had that folky vocals by Sandy Denny or a Maddie Pryor type. They're Australian. They're now based in Brooklyn. In fact, I'm going to see them. They're on Sub Pop Records, which is a Seattle label. I'm going to see them Monday night here in Seattle, and I'm so excited. This was, I think, their first album on Sub Pop. This is their most recent, and there's one in the middle that I can't find right now. It's out there. I just haven't. I got to find it and order it. But okay, nothing to see there, folks. But really, well-recorded records, beautiful records, and probably in the last. I know they've been around a little bit, but my turntable guru, Matthew, from Hawthorne Stereo in Seattle. Hawthorne Stereo is a great independent hi-fi store. They sell new and used, a lot of used gear. But Matthew, I call him, a lot of people call him, not just me, he's my turntable guru. He can fix and repair any turntable. He modifies turntables. He's the king of the cartridge. Luckily, he lives close to me, so when I had an issue with my cart, he came by and fixed it up and swapped it out and, you know, gave me some suggestions. But I went to a little record soiree at his house several months ago, and I heard the album I don't have here, but he played Lulik, and right away I had to buy their records. So, and I'm looking forward. I'll probably see him Monday night too. But anyway, that's Mazzy's recent finds, and I want to thank you again for watching, VC. Comment away. Check out this music. I love turning people on to music. I love when people turn me on to music. And again, Benny from ABBA, solo piano. How gorgeous is that? Hopefully this stuff will stick. If this is a silent video, then you know it hasn't stuck. Or maybe I'll have to just redo it, you know. Well, you won't know then. It's kind of like you don't know if you're in another dimension until you know, because if you don't know, you didn't know it was there, and you didn't know that, so you don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, thanks, VC. Comment away, and please subscribe. And Mazzy loves you. Take care, friends.